Hello everyone, my name is Sanne Kokkert and welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm doing fantastic and thank you for joining me here today. We're going to continue with our to-do app, creating another column. We're going to call it description, so just a simple extra column. Later down the line we'll also add other entities and change the name of something in an entity. All of that will be discussed in future videos. For now, we're just going to add an extra column. Very simple. And let's go to our commands here. I already have my yarn encore dev watch running and my Symfony server :start. There we go. So let's go to our commands here, or just open up a new terminal and say php bin console make entity, and then either the name of the entity or keep it like that, and then it will ask you class name of the entity to create or update. So we want to update the to-do, right? We want to add a new property name, so a new column. So description, if I write that correctly, it wants to, we want it to be a string, yes. Field length, I'm gonna make that 500 characters or so at a maximum. Can this field be null in the database? Nullable? Yes, no. No, it cannot be nullable. There should be a description, otherwise there's no point in having it to do. Add another property. Enter the property name. I mean, I guess technically you could have it empty, you know, if you just need a simple, easy string, but yeah, for stuff's sake, I'm gonna keep it like this for now. We can always later remove the nullable if we wish. Do we want to add another property? No, we do not. Okay. When you're ready, create migration with make migration. Okay, so php bin -console m to make migration. Okay, cool. And then d:\m for doctrine migrations migrate. Confirm. And there we go. The migrations have been pushed. And if I refresh now, we can see here in columns, we now have a description added to our to-dos. Sweet. So how do we make proper use of this? Because, I mean, obviously we need to change a bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and change a lot of the code that we have here, and then I'll run you through all the changes that I have made. Okay everyone, so it's the next day. I've fixed some lighting around here, and now we're going to get into all the changes that I've made. So after we created another column, we got some things inserted in our to-do entity, and then we had to make some changes to deal with the updates. We didn't have to touch create or the delete function, and well, let's just take a look. It's better to show you, right? So small changes, compare with local, and let's take a look at our to-do entity here. So the only changes really that were made, this was made by Symfony itself. We now have a description that has this ORM column on it. This is all by Symfony, so this defines the length, what type it is, and you can change these down the line anytime you want to, really. All you need to do then again is to make migrations and doctrine migrations migrate. That's all you need to do, but we'll go over how to change an entity manually ourselves later down the line. So we got these new getters and setters as well. These were inserted, and then our toArray function. I changed something. I changed the addition of the description to this. So in this green, you can see it marked. Only the description was added here additionally in the toArray function, so that we get the description when we call the toArray function. Okay, pretty simple, right? So in the to-do controller, we went into the create function and we just added a set description. That's all. We set the description and that's it. No more extra things needed or whatever. And then there is this thing that I did change. So when we update, what would happen the previous time is it would just update. Like you could tap update and then tap update again, or confirm the update rather, and then you would just update immediately. And there was no need to. There's no necessity to go into the database, dig around and like change all that, because it's a duplicate. So if I've put an if statement here, and it basically says if the to-do get name, so we get the name of the to-do, compares to the content name, so the new name, so we compare the old name to the new name, and then the to-do description as well. If that compares also to the new content description, then we just log a message, return some JSON, text, and a level error on it, and we say, hey, you cannot do this because there was no change. So there you go. So we basically say there was no change to the to-do, neither the name or description was changed, and that's it. Okay, if those requirements are met, like if you somehow don't have any duplicates in there, then you get to set the name and set the description, okay? So we set the name here, we set the description, and then we flush it to the database just like we used to. This little extra line is not necessary. And then we added this to the update. This was not in here previously, but I'll go over why this was needed in just a minute. So I returned the to array now in the update as well. This wasn't the thing that we did in the first iteration, but I am going to do it in this one simply because, I don't know, maybe it's a nice workflow thing for you to do to actually use data from the database rather than, or from your server, rather than the stuff that just got injected in JavaScript. If anything goes wrong with the server, set state could go on or whatever. So to make sure that nothing goes wrong and we get proper errors if anything goes wrong, we make sure that we use the server data. I don't know, maybe that's just a personal preference. I don't know if it actually matters or not, but that's just the way I do it. So in the update, we return the to-do itself now as well. And the delete function didn't need to be touched at all. No differences there. Then in the to-do context, now this is where I made some of those changes. So here in the update to-do, what I did is I basically added another line, which is the to-do.description. That's the only line that really got added. But what I changed was this. So this used to be data.name. So we got this data in right here, this variable right here from our JavaScript. And that is okay. But if like something goes wrong with the server, but it somehow like the response and everything checks out, then like this is an if-else statement. If there is an error, you know, don't worry, just set that message and quit the function. But the else, if it somehow does succeed, we want to use the server's data, not the data that we got from the JavaScript. So if the server did succeed, we want to see server data. So that's why I send back to the to-do. So here what we get now is the response.data.todo.name. So that's what we set. So the response, the data of that response, then that to-do that was attached to it, and then that to-do's name, and then the to-do's description. Pretty simple. It's just basic object handling right here. And that's really all that we changed here. We didn't touch the delete, we didn't touch the create because there's no need to, because we just sent the entire object there. So there's no problem with that either. So that's great. Then in the to-do table, we changed quite a lot of things. Now, I'm sure there was a better way of handling this. Right now, I just have tons of states. Some people might be a fan of that, some people might not. I mean, I would probably put these things in the context rather than in a functional component right here, but it's a small component, so I can get away with it. If it was to be a bigger application, then you would put the add and the edit functions and any booleans that have anything to do with the to-do table, with any of the to-dos really, should be in the context. But for now, it's a functional small component. I have just put it in here. So we have our add to do name, set to do name. Those are changed. They used to be add to do and add or a set add to do. Now it has the suffix name on it, so we can differentiate between name and description. So we now also have an add to do description, set to do description, use state, again an initial value of an empty string, and then the same edit for description and name, just like we are used to. Just change the little name there. Just a little suffix there. So another thing that we changed is in the create to do, we added a second parameter, or not a second parameter, but we added something to the object that we send away. So the data that we send when we create the to do, we just add the description to it and it will take care of everything for us. Then this is something that I changed. Let's see. So the set add to do description, that gets emptied out. So when you've added it, it will empty the text field when you're done. And that same goes for the add to do name. And then in the on edit submit, so when we edit it, we submit basically the entire object. So as the object being the to do ID, which is the thing that we get from the function itself, then as a parameter, and then we get the name from the edit to do name and the edit to do description from the state. That's basically it. And then set the edit is shown to false because we want the edit to be disappearing again. We want that to go away, so we set it back to false. And then I also created an extra clear function that also does the same thing. It just sets it to false, just for convenience sake. So with that being said, you know what? Maybe we're just gonna delete this clear. We're just gonna delete this clear, and we're gonna put it in an arrow function down below. So here you can see that I've added in some extra comments. I added an extra table cell for the description itself. I added here to the text field that name was changed. So it said add to do names now instead of add to do name. That's what was changed. We added an extra table cell. So this is for the description. So here's for the name, here's for the description. So name, this one is the name, this one is the description. And yeah, it's the same thing that we see up here. Let's see, any differences here? Yeah, I made it a multi-line. So this means that it won't accept enters for submitting, but you can use multiple lines now, which is pretty cool. And Material UI takes care of this all for you. You don't have to worry about markup or anything. We're adding \ns for new lines. Material UI takes care of that all for us. Then I added some comment here, data, name, edit to do name is the value for this text field. So this is the edit section. So if edit is shown and it compares it to do ID, then we want to set that value. We want to have that on change here. So set edit to do name. I also added a typography around the to do name. And this is basically to make it like more Material UI stylized so that the fonts actually look proper. I added a typography around the to-do name right here. And normally you should do that anytime when you do render anything with Material UI. You want to make sure you use the typography anytime you type something. And then use things like P's or H1s and that sort of stuff on the typography itself. But this just makes sure that you use the correct fonts and all that stuff. Then we added this entire section. So let's see what we did here. So this is the description portion of that. And yeah, edit is shown compared to the to-do ID. We show a form with a text field. It's multi-line. And we have an on-submit here. Although the on-submit makes probably 0 sense because you can't press enter on a text field that's multi-line. You cannot do that. Actually, having the on-submit here actually makes no sense whatsoever. And it probably would be best if I just remove this form. Yeah, let's just remove this form because it makes 0 sense. You can't even use it, the on-submit, so I'm not going to make it a form. So instead, we just submit the data directly. I mean, I guess for browsers, to like the browser crawlers for Google search engine optimization, I think they will like it more than if you put a form around it. I'm not too sure about that. I don't go over SEO or any of that stuff. I am not an expert on that on any level. This is just a basic app, so we're going to stick to that. And then typography to do description as well. And then this is important, white space pre-wrap. Put that on the style of the typography. And the reason we do this, or you could use a div or anything really, it just is important that we use the white space pre-wrap. Why we say white space pre-wrap is because then it can actually listen to the new line. If there were to be a new line and we didn't use pre-wrap, it would just stick the new line onto the first line. That's not what we want. We want it to create a new line, like it actually renders that. So we need to use white space pre-wrap in order to use that. And then we have another edit is shown here, and this covers, let's see, these are the buttons. So I changed the way the buttons are shown. So you now have that done and close icon that you previously had on a singular, as an input prop. That's gone. Now it is swapping with the edit and the delete button. So the edit and delete now changed to cancel and done when the edit is shown. So when the edit is shown, you can see here that if it is true, we will show the done and close icon, and otherwise we show the edit and delete icon right here. So that's pretty simple. And then this is that clear function that I talked about earlier. I'm just going to change that to an error function and just set the edit is shown to false. Pretty simple. That's all I need to do there. And that's really all that I added. So, and then let's see, this set edit to do name, set the description as well, added that, and there we go. That's the end of it. So with that all being said, let's run this and see what this currently looks like. And that is my other project. So this is what it now looks like. So we now have our to do here, the task, okay, and multi-line description. So that's pretty cool. So we can actually use this multi-line now to actually go in here and change it to this, for example. And we get, of course, that lovely message at the bottom, to do successfully updated. And yeah, the use of multi-line is super cool for descriptions and stuff. If you want that, if you want to have some organization, this is perfect. I thought that the market would be having problems because, well, JavaScript basically, whenever you create a new line, JSON doesn't accept any markup. XML does, but JSON doesn't, and somehow it still figures out how to do this. I think Material UI takes care of it for us when you change it to multi-line, so that it inserts the escapes itself. But other than that, I don't know why it is being able to register new lines, but it's pretty cool that it does. So that's a nice little neat functionality. You can now create multi-line descriptions for your to-dos, and that's all pretty cool. Maybe another thing that I would add here is to make the first column a little smaller and then the description column really big, or we could just like leave it auto. And I mean, we got plenty of screen real estate here, but in the case of when it goes mobile, you can see that this can become somewhat of a problem maybe. I mean, it auto scales pretty well, but then the icons squish, and we'll take care of that at a later date. So the next episode, what we're going to be talking about probably is to either change an entity or Symfony forms. Either of those will do, and I hope you guys learned a lot, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.